Hello everybody, this is Jim Henry and I'm presenting to you Tinnitus 101, the basics for everyone. This is part 1 of 5. This presentation is broken up into 5 parts and it's going to last a total of about 2 hours. It's a lot of information about tinnitus and it's broken up into the 5 parts to make it more convenient to watch each part separately. And I'll show you what those 5 parts are in just a moment. The intent of this video is to provide information to people who have tinnitus, who want to know what it is and what can be done about it. And I try to make it as complete as possible to provide the information that you need, and I also make myself available if you need any further information. So why am I interested in tinnitus? I worked at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Portland, Oregon for over 35 years as an auditory researcher. And I have tinnitus, and I've had it since the 1970s. I've had tinnitus almost 50 years, maybe 50 years. I don't know exactly when it started. But during the 70s, I was a professional musician. I played loud guitar. And I had ringing in my ears at night when I went to bed, and I really didn't think anything of it. I didn't wear earplugs. I didn't wear any hearing protection. Nobody did back then, and at least most people didn't. And then I was a carpenter for 4 years after that, again with no hearing protection. And then I went back to school and I became an audiologist. And probably because I have a deaf daughter, I was interested in that field. So I wanted to go back to school. I became an audiologist. And when I got my master's in audiology, I was hired at the VA hospital in Portland in their auditory research lab. And then I realized I want to do research. And so I thought, well, I need to get a PhD, so I went back to school at Oregon Health and Science University, and I got a PhD in behavioral neuroscience in 1994. And after I got my degree, I was back to full-time at the VA in the auditory research lab, and I wrote a grant on tinnitus, clinical tinnitus measurement at the time. And I did tinnitus research ever since then. So between 1995 and 2022, I was a full-time, mostly tinnitus researcher. So I learned a lot, and I want to share what I've learned. I want to help people, and I'm mostly spending my retirement years. I've been retired now for about 3.5 years at the time I'm making this video. And I'm mainly writing a series of books to make information available to people. And these are the first 3 books that I wrote. These are self-published, and by doing that, I can really keep the cost down for people. The presentation today is mostly from this first book. It's if you want to learn more about what we're talking about today, it's mostly in this book. If you want more details about tinnitus retraining therapy or progressive tinnitus management, these books describe those methods in detail. And these books are written they're written from the perspective of a scientist because I reference everything. There's about 200 references in each book, but I'm writing them in a style that would be understandable by anybody. That's the key to these books, is that they're for anyone who wants to know more about tinnitus or these different methods. I've also written a book called the Hyperacusis and Misophonia book, and this book is also self-published, so it's inexpensive, and it focuses on different sound hypersensitivity disorders. Most people just refer to them as hyperacusis, but this breaks it all down into different disorders, including misophonia, which you may know about, but so many people with tinnitus have these different sound hypersensitivity disorders that it just made sense to me to focus on a book for these disorders. This is my latest book, and this book is targeted more to audiologists, and it's also published by a publisher, so it costs quite a bit more money than my self-published books. And it's a method. It's not a specific method, but it's more of a framework for how to provide tinnitus services, regardless of the method. And so those are my books, and because of all of my writing and studying, I've put together this presentation because I realize how much this information is needed by people, and hopefully these presentations will make it easily accessible to anyone who wants it. And if you want more information, you're going to find most of it in those books that I just mentioned. So here we go with Part 1, Tinnitus, What is it? And we'll start with, why do I say tinnitus and not tinnitus? Well, most professionals say tinnitus, and most of the lay public says tinnitus. That's just the way it is, and it really doesn't matter how you pronounce it. Either one is totally acceptable. I refer often to the American Academy of Otolaryngology Head and Neck Surgery Foundation, the AAOHNSF. And the reason I do is because this is such an excellent publication. It's a clinical practice guideline for tinnitus. It was published in 2014, and that might make it a little dated, but for the most part, it's very up to date. And I especially like their terminology, their definitions. It's a very thorough article, and it's available online. It's free. You can open it up. You can look at it yourself. And frankly, I think every audiologist and every tinnitus specialist should be aware of these guidelines. This is a quote from the guidelines that I think is very apropos for starting off this series of presentations, and I'll just read it word by word. Clinicians should engage the patient or the patient's proxy in decision-making with awareness of the natural history, the prognosis, and management options. Although many patients seek help for their tinnitus, they are often told that little or nothing can be done to help them. Most patients and many clinicians do not know the options available for management of tinnitus. They face tempting advertisements and claims of treatments and cures. Some patients are desperate and some not well informed. Often such patients will seek any kind of treatment offer that has the appearance of legitimacy. Despite a lack of cure for primary tinnitus, there are many approaches to treatment that can improve symptoms and relieve distress. And if you're distressed by your tinnitus and you want to know if there's help available, there is help available. And this quote pretty much says it all. And I hope that it's encouraging to you. Tinnitus or ear noise, there's a distinction. Not all ear noise is tinnitus. And so the technical definition of tinnitus is sound in the ears or head that lasts at least 5 minutes and occurs at least weekly. That's a technical definition, and that's why we can distinguish between ear noise and tinnitus, because any ear noise that does not meet that definition is not tinnitus. Tinnitus is usually constant. My tinnitus is constant. It's been constant for probably close to 50 years. It's always there. Anytime I'm in a quiet room, I can hear it. And even when I'm in just about any environment, I can hear it. It's very loud. It's very piercing. And it's always there. Some people have intermittent tinnitus. It comes and goes, or at least they think it comes and goes. And that can be difficult to determine. But most people have constant tinnitus. And tinnitus is a medical condition. And the reason it's a medical condition is because audiology services, at a minimum, are needed. The person with tinnitus most likely also has hearing loss. And hearing loss means you need to have your hearing evaluated by an audiologist, and you may need to see an otolaryngologist. So that's why tinnitus is a medical condition, but ear noise is not a medical condition. So ear noise can be transient ear noise. Transient ear noise is a tone in one ear. It comes on suddenly, just like a beep, and it fades away over a minute or so. And that's something almost everybody experiences. It also is accompanied by a sense of hearing loss and ear fullness. So it's just this kind of constellation of symptoms that just occurs suddenly and decays fairly rapidly. Usually doesn't last over 5 minutes. It usually lasts about a minute. That's transient ear noise. It's not tinnitus, but some people think it is tinnitus. And then there's temporary ear noise. So if you've ever gone to a rock concert or been exposed to very loud sound, gone to the gun range, ran a chainsaw, there's so many ways that we can cause temporary ear noise. Most people refer to it as temporary tinnitus, but if it doesn't last at least 5 minutes and occur at least weekly, it doesn't meet the definition of tinnitus. So temporary ear noise is a red flag that damage has been done to the inner ear. And so my advice, anyone's advice would be protect your ears from loud sound. Loud sound is the number one reason people have tinnitus. And so I always advise people to get some good fitting earplugs, learn how to insert them properly, and carry them with you at all times. And whenever you're around loud sound, put them in your ears and protect your ears. If I had done that in my musical days, I would have prevented my tinnitus and I would have held off the hearing loss. We lose our hearing as we get older. That's called presbycusis. But we accelerate the damage by being around loud noise. So that's what I did. I could have protected myself, but I didn't because I didn't know. And so that's the key. Protect your ears from loud sound. Occasional ear noise. Here we go. Occasional ear noise right here, and intermittent tinnitus. It's a fine line. It's a gray area, trying to figure out whether a person has intermittent tinnitus or just occasional ear noise. It can be very difficult to determine. If there's any question, assume it's intermittent tinnitus and have your hearing tested and do any necessary follow-up. If you have transient ear noise, it's absolutely nothing to worry about. If you've experienced temporary ear noise, be concerned that that's a red flag that damage has been done. You need to make sure and protect your ears from any further noise exposure. Occasional ear noise, if you're not sure if it's occasional ear noise or intermittent tinnitus, have your hearing evaluated. The AAO-HNSF uses the terms primary and secondary tinnitus. So many people refer to it as subjective tinnitus and objective tinnitus. So I'm okay with subjective tinnitus meaning the same thing as primary tinnitus, and that refers to brain activity that's perceived as sound. So it's activity in the brain that's generated in the brain and it's perceived in the brain. It's a brain phenomenon, and that's really what primary tinnitus is. And that's why nothing can be done about it, because we don't really know what's causing it. We don't know the cause of primary tinnitus, and we don't know how to cure it because we don't know the cause. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Secondary tinnitus means there is a specific underlying cause. That's why the tinnitus is secondary. It's secondary to whatever that cause is. And if there are symptoms of secondary tinnitus, then the person should be examined by an otolaryngologist or other ear specialist physician to see if they can determine what the cause is and is it correctable. And then there's somatosound. Somatosound is a subcategory of secondary tinnitus, and this is probably getting a little confusing. Most people don't have secondary tinnitus. It's fairly uncommon. Some people say it's even rare. But some people do have it, and if you do have symptoms of secondary tinnitus, the audiologist will know that, and they will refer you to ENT. A somatosound is actually a sound that's going on inside the head. It could be caused by any number of things inside your head or your jaw, and it's causing a real sound, and the real sound is what you're hearing. One concern is pulsatile tinnitus, whooshing that corresponds with your heartbeat. And that's usually a constricted blood vessel, and that would definitely require examination by ENT. There's subtypes of primary tinnitus, and one is somatosensory tinnitus, also called somatic tinnitus, also called somatically modulated tinnitus. They all refer to the same thing. Now what that is if you move your jaw, clench your jaw, touch your face, move your eyes back and forth, people report their tinnitus gets louder when they do any of those things. That's the modulation. They're modulating the sound of their tinnitus by some physical maneuver, usually on their face, but it can be on their neck and can even be on a different part of their body. It's usually somewhere on their face. It's usually their jaw. And so that's modulating primary tinnitus. It's not secondary tinnitus. And so this is experienced. Some people say 70% of people with primary tinnitus can modulate the sound of their tinnitus. I can't. I've been examined to see if anything changes the sound of my tinnitus. Nothing changes the sound of my tinnitus. So I do not have somatosensory tinnitus, but many people do. And basically it's nothing to worry about. Now if there's some underlying reason that's a problem, like temporomandibular joint disorder, then yeah, you want to have that examined. You may want to have something done about that. But otherwise, somatosensory tinnitus is nothing to worry about. And then there's also reactive tinnitus. That means that your tinnitus gets louder when you're exposed to certain sounds. And that doesn't mean loud sounds. It can be any sound. It just makes your tinnitus notch up in loudness, and then it stays louder for some period of time, usually for a day or more. And that's reactive tinnitus. There's also musical tinnitus, not to be confused with earworms. So earworms are sounds that you have in your head that you're just playing, or you hear a song on the radio and then you walk away from the radio and you're still rehearsing or practicing that song in your brain. It's the song that you just heard, or it's a song that you think about, and you can turn it off. You can think about something else. You can start thinking about a different song. That's an earworm. Musical tinnitus is music, usually without voices, all instruments, usually unfamiliar music. It's some kind of a song that the brain is generating that is actually a form of tinnitus. And people often have this when they're living home alone. They have hearing loss. There's kind of a profile of people who generally have this, and they often don't want to admit it because they think that there's something wrong with them. Well, musical tinnitus does not indicate any kind of a mental disorder. It's just another form of tinnitus, generally nothing to worry about, and generally treated the same as tinnitus would be treated. And then if you have any question, here's a table that puts it all together. And these slides I will make available to everyone. If you just contact me, I'll provide my contact information at the end of each of these presentations. And I will also create a handout with all the slides on it that will be available on my website. So one way or another, you can get a copy of all of these slides, and you can refer to this table and anything else that's on the slides. A lot of patients ask, what causes tinnitus? So this is a little difficult to answer because we don't know what causes tinnitus. We know what can be associated with the onset of tinnitus. So when I talk about loud noise exposure causing tinnitus, that's really an error in how I'm describing it. It really means loud noise exposure probably caused damage to the inner ear, and that can result in hearing loss, it can result in tinnitus, it can result in hyperacusis, and we know that the damage is what causes hearing loss, but we don't technically know what causes the tinnitus. Why can some people have damage to their inner ear and they don't have tinnitus? other people have damage to their inner ear and they do have tinnitus. We just don't know what causes tinnitus, and that's what's causing it to be generated in the brain and sustained in the brain. So loud noise exposure is what's usually associated with tinnitus, but also certain medications can be associated with the onset of tinnitus. A tumor on the eighth nerve, which is the auditory nerve, that can cause tinnitus. That would be on one side. That's why we're always concerned about one-sided or unilateral tinnitus and hearing loss. Could be a tumor. It's conceivable, something to be aware of. And then head injury is often associated with the onset of tinnitus. So there's different reasons why a person can have tinnitus, but again, we don't know specifically what causes tinnitus. It can be extreme stress. You can be very stressed out for some situation and your tinnitus starts during that period of time, and a lot of people report that. If you don't know what caused your tinnitus, and we refer to it as idiopathic, we have no idea why your tinnitus started. The prevalence of tinnitus, what percentage of people have tinnitus, most studies say somewhere in the range of 10 to 15% of all adults experience tinnitus. With children, we really don't know how many children have tinnitus because they often don't report tinnitus. They think it's normal, they grow up with it, they have the sound in their ears or their head, and they don't think anything of it. It's just there, and they think it's normal. So there have been studies on tinnitus in children, and the prevalence estimates are all over the map. What does tinnitus sound like? Does it sound like ringing in their ears? For some people, it does sound like ringing in their ears. A lot of people think that because their tinnitus doesn't sound like ringing in the ears, it must not be tinnitus. But it is tinnitus. It just doesn't sound like ringing in the ears. So it can sound like just about anything, and we've had descriptions that, just about any sound in the environment can be what a person's tinnitus sounds like. One person said it sounded like dragging chains. Now, most often people describe their tinnitus as sounding like hissing or clear tone. It can also sound like buzzing, hum, high tension wire, ocean roar, whistle, and crickets or insects. I would describe mine as hissing, high frequency hissing. So I don't know what yours sounds like, but maybe it's one of these descriptions. There are different psychoacoustic aspects of tinnitus. That means how loud is it, what pitch is it, and how maskable is it. Also, how complex is it. So without going into a lot of detail, we all know what loudness refers to. It can be louder, it can be softer. Also, it can fluctuate in loudness. It can be louder one day, softer the next day. It can fluctuate within a day. Pitch is like a piano keyboard. It's either more higher pitched or lower pitched. So my tinnitus is way to the right on the piano keyboard. It's a very high pitched hissing sound. Complexity, we refer to that as timbre. Timbre is the complexity of a sound, and that can refer to anything. What does the sound actually sound like? What does a tinnitus sound like? That's the timbre. And then fluctuating, the loudness can fluctuate, the pitch can fluctuate, the timbre can fluctuate. Why is tinnitus louder when it's quiet? Well, people often report tinnitus as louder when it's quiet, but actually it may not be louder. It may just be the environmental sound has gone down to the point where it seems louder. And this is a good example from tinnitus retraining therapy, where you can have a candle in a dark room and it seems very bright. It's the only thing you see in the room, and it's very prominent, keeps your attention. Turn on the lights, the candle hasn't changed a bit, the flame is exactly the same, but you don't notice it as much. It doesn't seem as prominent because of the ambient light that's been added. So tinnitus in quiet is very noticeable, like a candle in a dark room, but if you add sound to the environment, tinnitus is less noticeable, less prominent. That's why hearing aids are often helpful for tinnitus, because they raise the level of the environmental sound and make the tinnitus less noticeable. Hearing aids are a treatment for tinnitus. The duration of tinnitus, so back to the AAO-HNS, they came up with these terms. New onset would be tinnitus that's been experienced for less than about a month. Recent onset would be tinnitus that's been experienced between 1 and 6 months, and persistent tinnitus at least 6 months. So obviously my tinnitus is persistent. I've had it for many years. Now, the natural history of people who have new onset tinnitus is that at first, that gets their attention, they notice it, but they become habituated to it over time. Habituation means you don't pay attention to it most of the time, and when you do pay attention to it, you don't react to it. So that's where I'm at. I don't notice it most of the time, even though it's very loud, and when I do notice it, I don't have any particular reaction to it. I just notice it. It's there. It's always there. But for people with new onset tinnitus or recent onset tinnitus, that's often not the case. They are very bothered by it. So that's the natural case for most people, but not everybody. Now, some people who are bothered by their tinnitus after 6 months, they're the ones who, according to the AAO-HNS, are the ones who would be most prioritized to receive treatment for their tinnitus. Does tinnitus get worse over time? And generally, the longer a person has had tinnitus, the more likely it is to persist. That's not to say long-term tinnitus cannot get softer or disappear altogether. So we can't predict how a person's tinnitus is going to change over time. Some audiologists have reported, wow, I had a patient who's had tinnitus for 20 years and they woke up one morning and it was gone. Now, that's not anything you can expect or that any treatment can be expected to result in, but it does happen occasionally. The key is to protect your ears. So some people feel like, well, I've had tinnitus for all these years. What difference does it make if I'm exposed to loud noise? Well, it does make a difference, because you can make your hearing worse. You can make your tinnitus worse. That's why I just keep saying over and over to make sure you have earplugs. You carry earplugs with you all the time, and you use them whenever sound is at a level that can be damaging to your ears. Okay, where do we perceive our tinnitus? That's the location of tinnitus. So generally, it can be in one ear, it can be in both ears, it can be in the head, it can be on one side of the head, the other side of the head, more in one ear than the other ear, so it can be symmetric or asymmetric. Some people even experience tinnitus outside of the ears. So that's an overview of tinnitus and what it is. Like I said, I can be reached very easily. Here's my contact information, and I'm going to sign off for part 1, and we'll see you in part 2.